Yo, what's going on? I appreciate everyone for tuning in to this video. Yo, this week, it's the weekend, it's Sunday. I got a lot of stuff to put out because there's a lot going on out there, interesting stories that I wanted to talk about, and I didn't want to jam up the weekly content. I'm Marcus, the debt free dad. Finances, financial takes, financial topics, current events, attorney reactions, licensed attorney, not your attorney, not legal or financial advice, just giving my opinion and takes on topics and letting y'all know what we got going on in the household of the debt free dad. In this video, we're going to talk about somebody who lost a lot of money because of an allegation. We're going to talk about a NFL Hall of Famer, Michael Irvin, and his situation he got going on. We're going to go through the legal arguments and the whole nine, and I'm going to just break things down. Hey, fellas, if hey, I look at my algorithms, I know what the stats are. An accusation of misconduct is one of the worst things that you could deal with as an individual. It just is. Even, I mean, you could have not done anything, but the court of public perception, which you could lose in the interim while the facts are being investigated, while you find out what's going on, could be a really big deal. I tell this story all the time. Like back in the day when I was a trial attorney, we had moved to an entirely new building. So we got a completely new office. Now, this was like when, it was prior to the Me Too movement, but you still could get Me Too'd up if you weren't being smart. So people used to always laugh at me, but literally anytime I would have someone in my office, if it was a female, it was a high probability that I probably was going to leave the door either open or have the door cracked partially. Why is that? Because hey, you interacting with people all the time. All it takes is somebody to say something, one thing, and the next thing you know, you got a whole bunch of issues with the bar association and legal ramifications. And your boy didn't want to deal with that. So it was actually good when we moved to a new building. I love the way that the building was designed because when you were in your office, the walls were essentially glass. So that allowed me to have a conversation with someone in my office with the door closed. But because you can see straight through the walls, there was always visibility there. So if something popped off, you always had people who were walking by who could look and see what was actually going on in your office. So we're going to kind of talk about it. So let's talk about what happened. Now, with Michael Irvin prior to the Super Bowl, Michael Irvin, and we know he's on ESPN, him and Stephen A. got their little weekly segments where they go back and forth about things. Well, Michael Irvin was set to provide commentary on the Super Bowl. So while he was hanging out at the Marriott Hotel in Arizona, he had an interaction with a woman who was an employee of the Marriott. Now, there's conflicting testimony, but hey, there are a lot of witnesses on one side and not so many on the other. The accuser is alleging that she had an interaction with Michael Irvin inside of the hotel and he sexually harassed her in some particular form. Now, Michael Irvin is asserting that, hey, I just had a conversation with her. It was a handshake. It was literally 3 to 5 minutes, very short interaction. After that, I went about my business, went up to my room. Well, this accuser, I can't even talk, made these allegations. What happened? Irvin's back in his room chilling. Security comes up, knock on his door, wake him up, ban him from all Marriott properties. Now his actually working as a commentator during the Super Bowl is gone. They're going to suspend him. It is what it is. And he suffered a lot of economic loss because of this. Now, of course, they got to figure out the veracity of it, the truthfulness of it. Is it true? Is it fake? Is it BS? There have been several witnesses who have came out already and said that they actually saw and witnessed the interaction and that there was no sexual harassment or anything inappropriate that occurred. Well, in light of all this, Michael Irvin is doing what he should do. I would advise him to do it if I was advising him. File a civil lawsuit. So Michael Irvin is filing a civil lawsuit. And right now, there's really just two claims on there. There's defamation of character, a defamation lawsuit, and there's tortious interference with a contract. Now, this is in Arizona. I'm not licensed in Arizona. I'm just giving y'all general information on what those legal concepts are. We already know what defamation is because a lot of YouTubers always get caught up in defamation. Is essentially putting out false information that causes an individual some type of harm that they can justify, that they can prove. And that could be libel or slander. It could be in the written form. It could be in the verbal form. But it has to be defamation is a lie, something that is not true, that's told about you, that causes you to lose some type of financial or economic harm. Hey, Michael Irvin is a big time guy, a multimillionaire, an NFL Hall of Famer on ESPN. We see him every week. He was up to provide commentary for the Super Bowl. So, sexual harassment allegations is definitely something that's going to it's going to be like throwing mud on the brother's name, and this is going to cause him to lose revenue. We don't know what appearances he had lined up during the week of the Super Bowl, but we know off the break he was barred from doing commentary on the Super Bowl. That's one check that probably was worth some M's, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars that's gone down the drain. His status on ESPN may be called into issue, called into question as well. So that's defamation. The next lawsuit that they're looking at is tortious interference with the contract. What is tortious interference with the contract? Is essentially what it sounds like. It's when someone interferes or has some conduct that interferes with a contract that you already had established for services. Michael Irvin had a contract with the NFL Network or Fox or whoever hosted the Super Bowl. I believe it was Fox. Michael Irvin had a contract with Fox. Tortious interference with the contract is essentially saying that this employee of the Marriott engaged in conduct that interfered with his contract, caused his contract to be damaged, to be canceled and terminated, and it caused him economic harm. Now, the last thing that we got to talk about here is the concept of respondeat superior. I know that's Latin. I only know like 4 Latin phrases, and they're all tied up in legal nuance. But essentially, what that means, it means that the employer is responsible for the acts of the employee as long as that employee's conduct was during the course of business. So, if this accuser was at work at the time when her and Michael Irvin had this interaction, whether it was friendly or whether it was not, she made these allegations. If she made these allegations during the course of her employment, her employer, Marriott, is on the hook for the defamation, is on the hook for the tortious interference of the contract, just like she is, because the employer is responsible for the act of the employee when they're acting within the scope of their job. Now, of course, Marriott's lawyer going to be like, she was rogue on her own, but if she was on the clock, chances are she's acting within the scope of her job, or the courts are going to find that she was acting in the scope of her actual employment. So that's how come Michael Irvin is filing this $100 million lawsuit against this unnamed accuser as an individual and against Marriott Hotel, because she was an employee of Marriott. She was probably working during the course of her employment at the time this happened. Marriott is on the hook under the concept of respondeat superior. Now, I want to just pull up the case so we could just read a little bit about what's going on, what's happening. And Michael Irvin has gotten a lot of W's in court. And I'm going to talk a little bit about these W's that he's getting so far. This case is moving fast as hell. Like, this just happened a week or so ago, and the court are already hearing motions and making judgments on things that are going to have an impact factually on this case. So let's go ahead and pull up an article, take a look. Okay. Early in Super Bowl week, representatives of an Arizona hotel owned by Marriott informed NFL Network of a misconduct complaint made by an unnamed employee about Hall of Fame receiver Michael Irvin. It resulted in Irvin being removed from the Super Bowl coverage, both at NFL Network and ESPN. Irvin reacted swiftly, filing a $100 million lawsuit against Marriott and the accuser. And the court in Collin County, Texas, is moving as swiftly as any court ever moves in a civil lawsuit. And I'll be honest, I think that's a little bit of home cooking too. Like, Michael Irvin is a Texas guy. Michael Irvin is a Texas guy. He's filing that lawsuit in Texas, which is a smart move on his behalf because he's going to get a little home court, home field advantage. It says via TMZ.com, the providing judge has already ordered that Marriott identify the name of the employee, that Marriott must produce video evidence regarding the allegation interactions. Marriott also must disclose the NFL network employee to whom the report was made. The specific allegation against Irvin uh, never has been disclosed. I can't even talk. Although he did himself no favors by talking publicly about the situation in the aftermath of being pulled off the air by NFL Network, his legal strategy has been affected to say the least. I say it all the time. When you have a situation going on that has potential legal consequences, do not talk about it at all. There's no reason to get the public involved unless your attorney expressly wants the public involved. That's even, I've seen where you could be a YouTuber and a person has an accident and there may be some injuries or something like that. Like, don't talk about anything until everything is resolved legally, is always the best approach. So the best legal advice you could get is to ask for an attorney and shut the hell up. Irvin aggressively is attempting to prove his innocence. So far, he seems to be winning, making this situation even more compelling and awkward for the league. Is that Marriott is a longtime sponsor of the NFL. So that's kind of the things that we have going on. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the court's judgments, the court's decisions that they made. I think they made the right call. This isn't a criminal case where the identity of the accuser could pose an investigation issue and we should keep it secret until trial because the defendant would have a right to see their accuser. No, this isn't a criminal thing. This is a civil thing. So I think that the judge was 100% accurate in saying that, hey, we have to be able to effectively identify the individual named party to the lawsuit. And I think the judge did the right thing in that motions argument by saying that, hey, Marriott, you have to cough over all the information you have related to this. And it's pertinent because the court needs that to be able to make a decision on the facts. Now, there's this concept, and when my homeboy was telling me about this, there's a concept, it's called a motion for summary judgment, and it applies in civil court. Essentially, what a motion for summary judgment means is that the court heard all the evidence. Both sides, the opposing parties, don't dispute the facts that were presented to the court. So the court is going to make a decision based solely on the facts. Anytime there's no dispute as to the material facts of the case, the court can make a judgment based on the facts because there's no dispute. And that when a party wins via summary judgment, that's definitely not going to happen here because the facts are in dispute. The facts are in dispute because she's alleging that some type of harassment happened in some form. Michael Irvin camp is asserting that no harassment happened at all. This appears to be supported by several witnesses. So it's going to be interesting to see what the video footage reveals in this matter. But because there is a genuine issue as to the material facts of the case, no one is going to win just based on a motion for summary judgment. If there's an issue of facts that has to move forward, there's going to be some type of potential jury trial where the jury has to make the determination of if the facts are as side A says or if the facts are as side B says. If I had to give a crystal ball, pull out my legal crystal ball, I think this is ultimately going to probably result in the Marriott coughing up a big ass check, a settlement agreement. It's probably going to be a non-disclosure agreement on Michael Irvin's side. So he can't say anything about this case. He's barred from saying anything about the actual settlement. The young lady may have some judgment over her head, but again, her pockets aren't low. She don't got $100 million. That's why he's suing the Marriott Hotel under the doctrine of respondeat superior, where the employer is liable for the acts of the employee. I just wanted to give y'all my quick take on this case and what was going on, break it down for y'all. Y'all let me know if y'all want more coverage on this case, if y'all want to update. Hey, if you like this video, check out the video on the screen. It's going to be more content that you'll enjoy.